Okay, so welcome everybody and thank you for coming today to attend this seminar given by Dr. Gary Stevens, who has written an amazing book called Waiting for a Father. I have just finished reading it last night and I must say it's a very moving story, a touching story about a pair of adoptive parents going through raising an orphan with special needs. So I think that today would be a very beneficial seminar for us to learn about what can we do as a society to de-institutionalize children as much as possible and put them into some sort of permanency in their lives. So welcome everybody. Before we pass the ball to Dr. Gary Stevens, then we have here a Mother's Choice representative to introduce to us the nonprofit organization that has been dedicated for 26 years in promoting the child welfare and well-being for orphans and abandoned children. So welcome everybody. Thank you for coming.
Before we begin, I would just want to give a very brief introduction about Mother Choice, of which Dr. Gary Stevens is a co-founder. And my name is Phoebe Tang. I'm the Manager of Advocacy and Community Education at Mother Choice. As one of the co-founders, Gary will share a little bit about how Mother Choice come into being. And our vision at Mother Choice is to make sure no girls and baby will be left alone. And we do that by joining hands with the community to make sure to transform lives and also give hope. We have 4 different services. The first is our Pregnant Girl services. So we provide a safe and non-judgmental services to girls and their family facing crisis pregnancy. So they will be able to make informed choices. We equip our girls and also their families with information and support and empower them to make positive and life-affirming decisions for their life. The second is our childcare home. We care for babies ranging from newborns to 2 years old. We also have a section that we care for babies or children or small group of children with a wide range of special needs. I just want to emphasize that we are not orphanage. So our aim for each of the children is to join a forever family as soon as possible. And the third is our adoption services. We work with the Hong Kong government and overseas agency to match children to adoptive families, which can be local or international. And in fact, this month is Hong Kong's second annual Adoption Awareness Month, which Mother Choice launched last year. So we are raising the awareness in Hong Kong that adoption is one way of building families. And families are defined by love and commitment, not just by love. The fourth is our foster care services, where we provide temporary home-like care to children under 18 years old who are facing various crises at home. Our goal is to help them to reunite with their birth family, as well as to join an adoptive family as soon as possible. And we have also recently launched a new department called Advocacy and Community Education. That's where I come from. We believe in proactively prevent problems of crisis pregnancy and children in adversity by advocating for public reform and also changing our community attitude through education and also researching best practices around the world so that we can learn from each other in the process. So, thank you for bearing with me and listening to me. So I will hand over to Dr. Cheryl Chiu again.
Okay, so whenever you're ready, then perhaps we can start by you introducing your book and your experiences, and then after your presentation, then we'll have a
questions and answers.
15-minute Q&A session.
Okay.
Okay, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, at the conclusion, we'll have question and possibly answers. Okay. You can ask questions. I don't know if I have any answers, but we'll begin that way, or we'll end that way. Let me introduce the subject matter. Actually, can I have a book? And I'll hold it up for a moment. The foreword in the book that I've written, Waiting for a Father, occurred to me, it happened to me, on the other side of the harbor in the region of Kwun Tong. Mother's Choice had been established for several years when this event occurred. I was the managing director during that time. The early years, my wife was the managing director. And actually, Hong Kong U conferred on me an honorary doctorate in social sciences. So when my children hear me being referred to as Dr. Stevens, they start laughing because I'm Dad, okay? And we do have a medical doctor as one of my children who went to medical school in the UK. A son who's working on his PhD. He got a degree, an advanced degree from HKU, but now he's working on a PhD in mathematics, so he's going to also be a doctor, okay? And the eldest child left home 22 years ago, but has reinvented herself after some painful experiences and has just become a licensed practical nurse. She's working on an online degree to become a registered nurse, and her ultimate goal is to be a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, which is also a PhD, okay? So these three laugh at their dad, all right, which is okay. So I'm in my office in the mid-levels over on the other side of Garden Road. That's where our adoption services team was working in the next door office. And there was a glass door between my office and their office that was always left open, unless they closed it because they were having a special meeting. But it was always left open so that they could have immediate access to me. I wanted to be available. The other door into my office was also always left open unless we were in conference of some kind. So Suzanne, one of our wonderful social workers, walked through the glass door into my office and she said, "Gary, what's your schedule?" You know, I'm sitting at the computer or I'm on the telephone or whatever. My schedule's not really busy. They do all the work, okay? Everybody else does the work. I said, "What do you need?" She said, "Could you go with me today to drive over to the other side of the harbor? I have an interview with a 10-year-old boy who is in group home, small group, not small, group home. He's 10 years old. His previous 10 years had all been lived in group home. He's in about his 4th group home. 40 or 50 children in a group home. It's a small institution, but it is an institution, okay?" And I said, "Suzanne, I'm not a social worker. Why do you want me?" She said, "Because you're a dad, you're a father. I need to get your perspective on this young man because the group home he's staying with has referred him to us to help find an adoptive family for him. At 10 years old, almost impossible because of how old he is, okay?" I said, "Okay, I'll go with you." So we're over on the other side of the harbor, and we're in a conference room about half the size of this one, but not as cool because no air conditioning. So it's very warm. It's in the high 30s Celsius. It's in the high 90s humidity. It's one of those days in Hong Kong. You know them, okay? So it wasn't in November, okay? It was in a different month, all right? So we're sitting in this room waiting for this young man, see him to walk in. So the door opens, bouncing boy walks into the room full of energy and life, and he's wearing his school uniform typically, okay? He unclipped his school tie, and there's an overhead fan. He threw it, well, it actually took him 2 times to get the tie up on one of the blades, but then the tie is hanging over the blade as it spins. He doesn't say anything, he just comes in and does this. And then he came over and sat beside me, and he pulled me into his body. It was actually on this side. So he's sitting as close as he can, and then he pulls me into his body. And he starts smiling at me like he had 220 volts and 1,000 watts of light behind his eyes and his teeth. His whole face just lit up toward me. And there's a look of longing on his face. As he's hugging me, he asks Suzanne out of the corner of his mouth in Cantonese, "Is this my daddy?" Then he said to me in English, "Are you my daddy?" I said, "No, Tsim, I'm her boss." He said, "Don't you want to be my daddy?" While he's still holding me. How do you respond to something like that? You hear his heart cry. We believe every child deserves a family. How do I respond to this question? Well, I'm trying to figure this out mentally. I'm doing mental gymnastics. So I thought, let me see him about my own adoptive child. So I started telling him about my son, Lok Chi. I said, him, let me tell you about this boy my wife and I recently adopted. He's 2 or 3 years younger than you, okay? He was born with no eyes in hospital here in Hong Kong. His married parents saw his condition and they said, "We can't parent this boy. We're out of here." And they left him in hospital. When his mother was giving him birth, as he's coming through the birth canal, there's a rupture in the wall of the birth canal, and feces and urine leak into the birth canal. You understand, it's a fistula, okay? As Lok Chi is coming through the birth canal, he takes a breath, because babies are wanting to breathe, right? He ingests poisons, toxins into his body. So, day 6, he has major surgery. He has part of his stomach and a significant portion of his intestine removed because it's filled with poison. But after the surgery, he's put back in the ward with newborns. Well, newborns in Hong Kong hospitals, they're not picked up and caressed. You know, they're a number in a bed. We just need to make sure the patient is fed. Okay? You understand what I'm saying? And they would roll up a towel, put a bottle toward his face filled with kanji. Well, newborns need formula. They need a lot of, well, actually, even before they get formula, they need colostrum. Okay? That's what a birth mother develops before she gets milk, is colostrum, which is important for the child to fight disease and other things and set things, the building blocks in their body are established right there in those first few hours. He didn't get any of that. He was hospitalized 26 weeks in the first year of his life. Like 16 times he's hospitalized. Remember, no eyes. They're just sockets, okay, with no eyeball. All right? Major scar across his tummy. After most of the first year at the hospital, he's transferred to Chuck Yuen. You know, the government reception center for newborns and infants. It's an institution. He's there for several months, and during this time, so he's past month 9, he's past 1 year, he's given an IQ test by well-meaning people who were misguided. They gave this baby boy with no eyes an IQ test based on visual norms. Do you know any blind person who can pass an IQ test based on visual norms? So he's labeled retarded. Okay? And he's sent from Chuck Yuen to another institution on Kowloon side, a home for mentally handicapped kids. In a room this size, over there, and I could take you to the building, okay, we're 40. This way? Huh? The 4s, I could do it this way, I guess. Okay. 40 children in a room this size, mentally handicapped, screaming all day long. This is what this little boy hears. As a series of events, we take him out of that institution, transfer him to the care of Mother's Choice. We put him in a small group home that we run with other special needs children. But one or two of the children would touch him. He was tactile defensive. So, you know tactile defensive? You know what it means? So when I touch you, how do you respond if you're tactile defensive? You scream. Because you've just gotten in this person's personal space. And if you don't have language, what do you do to protect yourself? You scream. He can't run, he can't walk, he can't talk. All he can do is scream. So he would scream for 5 or 6 or 7 hours a day. How would you like to be a staff member trying to provide care for a small child who's screaming all day long? It's tough. So my wife, because she helped make the decision to bring him to Mother's Choice, said, bring him to me. As a 2.5-year-old, he weighed 17 pounds. 8 kilos. Not quite 8 kilos, 17 pounds. 2.5 years old. I know 12-month-olds that weigh more than that. Fat China baby. No, a lot of children all around the world weigh more than that at a year. Okay, I've got grandchildren that have outweighed that at a year. He's 2.5. So she put him in a sling. Okay, you can help me here. Thank you. Don't you love my lovely assistant? Her name is Jen, and she's a star, and she's actually told me what I need to talk about today. So I need to make sure I'm staying with what she wanted me to talk about. This is Helen, my wife, and she's gone, just like this. She's back, okay? But the sling she would wear. But this is Lachi, and you can see he has no eyes. You see there's no eyeball. Can you see that clearly? Huh? It's just a socket. When I first met Lachi, it was hard for me to look at him in the face because I saw his disability. Okay? This side has almost nothing in there. Now you can see it better. Thank you. Okay? This side, you can see a little dark right there. That's something about the size of the end of your little finger. It's like almost like a pea in shape. Okay? An unformed eyeball. Okay? It's like it stopped growing. So we would take him to, she carried him on a sling and on her chest for hours every day, 7 days a week. She's a very committed lady. I'm so glad I married her. Okay? And she would speak, I guess I should not shout at you, should I? She would speak very softly to him with a very soothing voice. She would sing to him and walk between our facilities several hundred meters, sing to him, hold his little arms, and he's hanging there limp the entire time. Until after maybe 6 or 7 weeks, so 2 months of carrying him for 6 or 7 hours every day. That's a lot of hours. That's 42 hours a week if it's 6. It's 49 hours a week if it's 7. Okay? Times 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. Do you know how many? We're getting into hundreds of hours of contact with this woman. His face is right here in between her breasts. One of his little ears is pressed to that breast which is closest to her heart. And what is he hearing? Her heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. And he's still just hanging there now. But after 6 or 7 weeks, she's walking between 2 of our facilities. Out of the blue, as she's walking, a little finger in that limp arm reached over to her elbow and stroked her elbow once. That was the first signal we had that somebody was home inside the little body. Okay? So as I told you, he was labeled retarded. Okay? We've had his brain mapped. Okay? EEG mapping, brain mapping. Okay? They take 26 leads and put them on your head and make a good connection with a paste. And then they run the leads into a computer. And they can read the brain and take pictures of the brain. Guess where he has brain damage? Left side, right here, over the expressive language center of the brain. When he first came to us, this side of his head was as flat as my hand, as big as my hand, from not being turned as an infant. Okay? He's nonverbal. He does not have English or Chinese. And he's lived in my family for 17 and a half years. He's got receptive language. He understands everything I have said to you so far. And some things he would be saying to me, no. Part of that is him trying to say, Dad, don't tell about this. It's him. Okay? He's learned 5 English words that he can say clearly. Dad, that's a nice one. Okay? Mom, okay? No. He started at na. Okay, is that Chinese? Or no? No. No? Okay, never mind. All right. All right. More and yeah. And he knows the international sign for toilet. Okay? So if he sticks his thumb like this to you, you better find the toilet. Because that means he needs to go to the toilet now. All right? Now, he doesn't have language. He's got brain damage over the expressive language center of the brain. I'm convinced that it's the trauma and the abuse. Can I use that word? I want to do it politely. I don't want to be mean-spirited and point fingers, but I do want to say he's got brain damage because of abuse in the institutions before he came to our family. We had a medical doctor come years ago from the East Coast of the United States and teach a bunch of our staff. And he talked to us about different types of abuse. And he started with verbal abuse, where you're abused verbally by parents and authority figures. You're spoken down to and you're harangued and you understand what I mean, okay? And I think a lot of that happens in families all over the world, okay? But then the doctor went and spoke about physical abuse, where you're beaten, locked in a room, okay? Kicked, okay? Third level of abuse he talked about was sexual abuse. And he's explaining to us, he said, as we're going through these levels of abuse, I want you to understand we're going through from the most superficial or the highest one, and when we get to the bottom, you're going to see it's the worst form of abuse there is. Guess what it's from? Neglect. It has the most profound impact on a child, and it's the most long-lasting of any of the abuses that the doctor's talking about. And he's got he's a medical doctor, and he teaches art therapy. And he works with people to recover from abuse. But he said this one is the most severe and most long-lasting. Abuse from neglect. He's not retarded. That boy is not retarded. You show me whatever you want to put on there, and I'll talk about it, okay? Because that means that you're going to control what I'm talking about, all right? Okay? This was taken this summer. he does have eyes. Okay? They're made for him in Colorado. Handmade for him. Custom made for his skull. We took him to an ocularist who put a plastic mold inside, and he had to sit really still. That means I need to be there and hold his hands and talk to him while that clay is in against his little bud. And we did both. And we're trying to make sure that the mold we make is able to actually look out, because when we first would get him eyes, we would go to, is it Queen Elizabeth Hospital's on the other side?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Kowloon Bay? Where's it called?
Queen Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth Hospital. We'd walk him in, and some of the doctors knew him from when he was delivered. Okay? They'd say, "Yik la chi!" And then he'd cower toward us because setting him off. Okay? We'd go in to have him sit with eyes, and they'd open a drawer and pull out a half a dozen eyes and say, "Let's try this one over here. Let's try this one over here." Sometimes we'd walk out of the doctor's offices and his eyes are looking like this. Okay? Not with these. They're custom made and hand painted. What color are most of your eyes? Brown. Do you notice what color they are? Those are Chinese eyes. Okay? With hand-painted veins on the outside to look so natural. Okay? So when we come in from being at school or wherever we have been, he does go to school, but he doesn't study mathematics, English literature, chemistry. He studies using a cane and trying to feed himself. Okay? But when we come in from school or being at shopping or whatever, running errands, we come in the back door, he takes the shoes and socks off immediately, and he pulls this eye out and holds it out to me. And then I'm supposed to take the other eye out, because you only wear eyes, in his mind, when you go out. It's kind of like it's like putting a coat on when you go out, or a dress, or a blouse, or whatever. It's what you wear when you go out. But when you're at home, you don't do that. Because he's mapped the house in his brain. So when he was a little boy, and we're living in Hong Kong, remember, he couldn't walk. He couldn't sit up at all. If you just squeezed his arms or legs that gently, you went all the way to bone. There was no muscle. No muscle. He couldn't sit himself up. Okay? He would put these two fingers in his mouth to help rock himself to sleep, rolling back and forth in a bed to put himself to sleep. That's called institutional behavior, self-stimulation. This is what we create when we institutionalize children. There's a downside to all of this in the child. And studies have shown that children who are raised in institutions, their IQ average is 68, which is mildly retarded. You have the same type of group of kids who are fostered, okay, or placed in permanent loving homes. Guess where their IQ goes? 96, okay, which is average IQ, not retarded. My son is not retarded. I would like to meet the man or woman who labeled him retarded, because I'd like to tell them what I think of their assessment in a loving parental way. Okay? His brain is so phenomenal. So we have a therapist in Colorado. Her name is Leslie. Okay? Jacob, that's his English name, or Lakchi. The very first time he met her, it was at a horseback riding therapy session. So we take him to where he's going to ride horses for therapy. And the therapist who's going to work with him, her name is Leslie. So when he has an appointment with Leslie, this is 10 years later, okay? When, Jacob, you've got an appointment on Saturday with Leslie. Guess what he says? Da, 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 da. Horseback riding. Da, 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 da. That's where he met her. So he's developed language. It's just not English or Chinese. It sounds like Morse code to music, or with tune and tone. He has the right number of syllables, the right cadence, the right inflection of English, but it's not. So every Saturday morning, he knows it's Saturday morning because yesterday was Friday. He knows the days of the week. He knows the months of the year. He knows his siblings' names. He knows their spouses' names. He knows his nieces and nephews' names. He just can't say them in English. What's your brother's name? Okay, you're going to get Andrew on there? Okay. No, go to the family photo.
The big one?
Yeah, the big one.
No, we don't have that one.
We don't have the big one? Okay, never mind. This is his eldest sibling. This is Shauna. She's a wild river guide. She met her husband guiding fishing in the wild rivers of Mongolia. Mongolia, they have rivers up there. You never see people for like 5 weeks because nobody's there. Okay, you're out in the Gobi Desert, down in canyons, fishing for prehistoric trout called taimen. Okay? They have this wonderful bond together. You can tell they like each other, can't you? This is not posed. We can't get him to pose. He doesn't know how to pose. Okay? So you have to snap one when they're doing something. Okay? Shauna's just taking him for an ATV ride, all like a four-wheeler, like a motorcycle but with 4 wheels, up in the mountains in Colorado. And she said something to him that he really likes. Okay? So Helen and I went away for 2 or 3 days, and Shauna and her husband took care of Jacob, okay, while we were gone. And she said, Jacob, what would you like for supper? Let's have a theme for these 2 days while Mom and Dad are away. Let's call it cheese and chocolate. Okay, cheese and chocolate. My wife would never give him chocolate. So he's going to get cheese and chocolate. Can you do we have breakfast in bed?
Breakfast in bed. I think
Did I delete that?
Huh?
Okay.
Yeah, we have it.
Oh, we do? Okay. All right. He's saying one of his expressions that he's actually trying to say Montrose High School. And Shauna is teasing him and trying to change what he's saying into breakfast in bed. Okay? Breakfast in bed. Or he's talking about, what is the schedule? And she's saying, oh, you want breakfast in bed? He starts laughing. So she gave him breakfast in bed. He thinks this is so hilarious. Nobody eats breakfast in bed. He's always at the bar, feeding himself. But she's giving him breakfast in bed. Okay?
10 minutes.
What?
10 minutes.
I have 10 minutes?
Before Q&A.
Wow, I have so much to say in 10 minutes. Okay? I can't say everything I want to say in 10 minutes. You have to lock the door. Nobody can go out. Okay? I want to talk about his brain for just a minute. Okay? So, he's memorized between 500 and 1,000 songs. Not just the tune, the words. So, he will give you the first 5 notes. He'll hum them. Okay? And then you're supposed to start singing where he left off, all the verses and choruses. And if you leave one out, he goes back to the top of the song because he knows it. So what does that say about his brain? He's got brain power. Okay? He cannot have sung a song for 2 years and you give him the notes and he'll hum it through. What's that say about memory? The boy is not retarded. Okay? He's one of the brightest people I know. He's so clever. So he doesn't have language. And he's trying to talk to his mother or me, and he's giving us whatever his language is for the subject that he wants to talk about. And if we can't figure out what he's trying to say, he's smart enough to figure out, okay, I'm going to back up to a subject they understand that has a relationship with what I'm trying to talk about now. Well, I'll get them here and get them from here to there. What does that show? Pretty good agility in the brain. Huh? See, it's a good thing she's here because I could talk for like an hour and a half. Okay? She's telling me, what's the solution?
It's on the piece.
I understand. I know where it is. Well, the solution actually comes from the title of the book. Now, I'm using father in a generic sense. It means both father and mother. Okay? C. Him's question to me was, are you my daddy? Okay. I told him Bakshi stories, what he did with his eyes, taking them out, throwing them across the floor, dropping them on an escalator, blinking so it falls in the toilet, so all kinds of stories, okay? And after I finished telling him those stories, he said, don't you want another? You hear the impact? Basically, that is the heart cry of every fatherless child in the world, and the fatherless in Hong Kong. Because several of you are social workers, okay? There is a social worker mantra. I'm using the word mantra that says, what is in the best interest of the child? Okay? We use that. It needs to be more than a mantra. It needs to get from here and our learning, in the classroom to here. Because what needs to motivate each of us as social workers is what really is in the best interest of a child. And I need to help tailor what I do with this child to their needs, not my needs, and not my checking a box on a form that I did this. They're not a number, they're a person. The solution is we need to help empty the orphanages of the world. There is an institution that's natural for children to be raised in. It's not an orphanage. It's not a group home. It's not a foster family. What is the institution that children should be raised in? Family. Okay? Biological, adopted, extended. Family. Where they're treated with love and respect. That their little spirit and all that's being formed inside them in those first 3 years, that's where the greatest amount of development for all of our life occurs in the first 3 years. And guess what he missed out on? The majority of his first 3 years. Okay? Institutions. Okay? The solution is, let's get children out of institutions into families ASAP. Okay? And as young as possible. I think we do some things here in Hong Kong that are counterintuitive. That's a very polite word to say stupid. We make provision for birth mothers to say, okay, I can't parent my child, but I can put my child in an institution and let them be raised until they're 18. Then they're legally an adult. That's not what's in the best interest of that child. It may be what's in the best interest of the birth mother, but it's not what's in the best interest of the child. Okay? think we've got an uphill battle and some cultural bias about adoption, but we need to inform. Adoption's a wonderful way to form a family. Ours was a combination of adoption and biology. We have both. My daughter and son-in-law, who were actually adult volunteers at Mother's Choice Baby Care, got to learn how to care for children, young children, as single adults, got attracted to each other. I'm so glad. Okay. They got married. They have 2 biological children and 3 adoptive children. Their 3rd child, Ella, came from Mother's Choice. She was at baby care for a while and then in a foster family. That's a good place to temporarily care for children, but the emphasis is on temporarily, okay, before she was adopted to Amy and Bob. She's got 2 younger Chinese brothers from mainland China. All 3 of these children have special needs. Hey, it's okay. They're managing just well, thank you. Challenges, yes. Solution is a whole bunch of solutions. We need to change some policy, but while we're waiting to change policy, we need to be doing everything we can to empty those group homes, those small group homes, those orphanages, those child care centers of children by putting them in family. Family, even if it's a foster family, but the foster family shouldn't be too long in the foster family. Attachment's a big issue. And if you read anything about adoption, and you read sometimes horror stories about children who had trouble attaching. If a child's raised in an institution without a primary caregiver, they often never are able to form an attachment bond. Therefore, they have relationship issues for the rest of their life. A child who has been able to develop a bond, an attachment, with a caregiver can reattach. If that's a foster care or a primary caregiver, that child can reattach. Fortunately for us with Jacob, he's attached to his mom and his dad and his siblings. One more picture. Steve. Even though my son is blind and nonverbal, that's him. What's the bib say? Blind skier. How many of you have been skiing? Are you very good?
No.
I bet he's better than you.
I'm sure.
He's a phenomenal skier. In skiing, there are 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, expert. He's right at the cusp of going from advanced beginner into intermediate skier. His balance is amazing. He makes beautiful S curves coming down the mountain. He's never even heard the term snowplow or pizza. I ski with him. There's no tether. There's no harness. I just ski beside him and hold his elbow and call out the turns. And if it's really steep and we're going fast, I'll hold his elbow a little bit tighter. Okay, but I'll call out the turns. And he makes beautiful skis. We've had people stop skiing and find us in the ski area to say, wow, we've watched your son ski. We saw him 3 years ago, and now we see him skiing. He's so much better as a skier. So, where do you want to ski, Jacob? Ta-ta-ta. Telluride, that's the name of the ski area. Who do you want to ski with? Da-da-da. Sounds like Telluride, doesn't it? No, that was Cousin Ed, who's on the left, who works in the adaptive program. And who else? Dad. He and I ski often, just the 2 of us. Jacob and Dad. Okay? I keep his blood sugar up by giving him cookies as we ride the chairlift, so that when we get to the top, he's ready to ski. Sometimes as we're skiing down the mountain, he's asking me for a cookie, and I'm saying, no, 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 no. You only get cookies on the chairlift when we're going up the mountain, not skiing down the mountain. And if we're going too slow, he turns down on the fall line to pick up speed to go faster because he wants wind blowing in his face. And you can tell he's in the zone. You know what I mean when I use that term? When we're skiing, because he starts humming to himself out loud. When he's musical, that means I'm good. He loves to sing when we ski. He swims like a fish. He can spend 2 hours in a swimming pool without touching the bottom. Just swimming. Turning somersaults. Forward, backward, sideways. 2 minutes. Gotcha. It's a good thing you're sitting in the front. Okay? He's developed his own strokes in swimming. So he will sit, you know, he's relaxed in the pool. And you're over there, he can use his legs and pull himself toward you in the swimming pool. Okay? He's like an octopus. He can go any direction equally fast. So if you play something like Marco Polo with him, okay, he's too fast at catching you. And his hearing is so acute, he can actually hear underwater too. I try to swim under him and go past. I don't know how he does it, but he feels the water movement. He'll reach out and grab my leg. Okay? 1 minute now. His brain damage didn't need to be. Okay? A lot of children who are living in institutions here in Hong Kong are being damaged with every additional 24 hours. Okay? So, let me open it up to questions.
I don't quite catch this damage. So you can make sound, you can hear. So can speech therapy help?
Oh, we've had him in speech therapy for 15 years.
But doesn't help?
He's got brain damage over the expressive language center. So it's, the brain damage is up here, it's not in here.
Yeah. So you cannot
No, he
feel the sound?
he can make sounds.
Yeah,
He
he
can
can sound.
he can hum. Okay, he can say mom, dad, no more. So he can make like most of the vowel sounds. Okay, he can imitate a little bit of that, but it's the brain that's unhooked. It's not the tongue. Okay, so that one's not repairable. We've had him with EEG neurofeedback for 5 years, an hour every day for 5 years, which helped him get out of the rage center back in. Neurologists and pediatricians who've examined him said it was like his brain was hardwired on red alert because of the trauma he suffered through neglect, okay? It's like that's why he was tactile defensive when he was a baby. Screamed, because everything is, okay? He would rage for 5 or 6 hours a day before we did the EEG. Rage. I mean, we've got scabs and blood and, okay, all that stuff off of us from his raging. For the last 8 years or 7 years, he said 0 rage. Even when he's sick, no rage. The EEG helped him assimilate, change some things in his brain, okay? So he's not stuck in rage, okay? But he doesn't have speech. He probably will never have speech.
This boy, actually, as we said, is very difficult for other people to take care of because he's tactile offensive.
He's no longer tactile defensive.
Yeah, I know. But you are encouraging us to take children out of the institution.
Absolutely.
But I think potential adopted parents or whatever would feel feel very helpless how to take care of the baby. If I touch him, then he will scream and
Well, I think we've got to approach this in two or three different ways. Number one, we need to get some people who really are concerned for that child and start doing preventative therapy right now, okay? We need to get caregivers who would take care of that child, and they're committed to that child's well-being more than their own well-being, okay, to help resolve some of the issues. There are some people here in Hong Kong who are doing EEG neurofeedback. I met one of them 2 nights ago. He's been licensed in the United States to start doing this, so he's opened his practice here in Hong Kong. EEG was developed to help people who have suffered trauma in the brain to relocate portions of the brain to different functions of the brain, to different parts of the brain. It was developed to help stroke victims. I've had a stroke. I have. Okay? It was developed to help move wherever the affected area is to a new part of the brain so that you can function. Okay? Many children who have suffered trauma that I'm aware of who've benefited from EEG neurofeedback have had remarkable results in their lives. So the fear of that child acting out should not overshadow the benefit that could be given to the child. Okay? Don't leave them in there. Let's help them get healthy and get them out of there. Okay? But at the same time, then we want to work on the other side of the equation, which is what's caused this, and let's fix it. And a lot of it is caused by institutional behavior, institutionalization. We cause the damage by institutionalizing a lot of these children. Okay? That's not a one once said covering everything, but I hope you can hear our passion, which is let's get children in the family ASAP. And let's figure out another way to support families who have children with issues so that they don't feel like they have to abandon their child, but rather let's have resources available to them free of charge to them that can help them accommodate and live with and even thrive with that child. Okay? You have a question?
Can I make a comment first and then a question?
Sure,
Actually,
sure.
I'll call you Daddy Stephen, if I may.
Okay.
Dr. Stevens. I think it's equally important. I salute you. Totally admire what you're doing. And you founded Mother's Choice in Hong Kong. Is that correct? And that's an international organization, as far as I understand.
Well, we have sister organizations in several other countries here in Asia.
Because
China.
I've heard of you many years. And, I totally admire and agree with what you're doing because I've been doing it for, this is like 12 years. I've been doing exactly the same thing for kids deinstitutionalize and get into families in China.
Wonderful.
And that's why I'm like a kid now in a candy store. I totally get excited. I'm very composed, but I'm actually very, very excited.
Wonderful.
And
That makes bump my fist.
my question actually is there any way we could join force in whatever extent with Mother's Choice?
Okay, we've got several people
yes,
here.
I
from
would
Mother's
love to talk
Choice.
to you.
So
guys.
yes, okay.
And
Yeah.
so this is like, yes, this is my firm belief and has been doing it for
Great.
over decades.
Great.
And we've done, we have many special needs children right now in our program. And I would love to be able to actually align with people over here. I didn't know that Hong Kong's the situation is as bad as what you
It's actually worse than what I described.
probably, and I'm sure that needs are everywhere wherever we turn, and Hong Kong, I'm sure is not as well. I hate to compare. It's just wherever our heart goes, we go toward that. And in China, it's just like, obviously, many folds worse than probably what it is here, but just as important.
Absolutely.
Both places.
Absolutely.
So I would love to be able to actually align with some of the professionals, with
Okay.
social workers who go into universities to train social workers as well. And so it would be just so lovely. I would
Great.
love to be able to talk. I
Maybe,
know there's no
maybe
time
you're
here.
the reason that we're here today. Huh?
I think so. I'm like,
Okay.
I'm so totally
All right,
excited.
so we
Yes.
will connect.
We'll talk
afterwards.
after.
Okay.
Yes.
You had a question? You didn't. Okay.
No, I actually my sister-in-law, and she's now 38, and she is mentally and physically handicapped. And well, she didn't do ECG or something.
Right.
2 years ago, we tried her out with acupuncture actually, and it's marvelous that she started walking
She started walking.
after 36
Wonderful.
years. Yes.
Wow.
I mean, everything is possible.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because I believe in brain power. If you read journals and books like that, I mean,
Absolutely.
you just need to connect the neuron.
Yeah.
And they will learn things again.
Yeah.
And also, you just need to give them the opportunity and care. I mean, she cannot speak neither because she was born like this. But similarly, she can
Yes.
make sounds
Yes.
and she has emotion. I mean,
Yes.
she knows what you like and you don't like, and she really can share.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the great joys of my life is my son. I've learned so much from him. And I just love it. I like hanging out with him, even if he's saying the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
He's 20 years old, but developmentally he's stuck at 2.
6.
No, he's between 18 months and 30 months. Okay? His developmental capacity. Okay? So 2-year-olds just keep repeating things over and over again. After a while, I'll say, okay, that's enough. So he'll go right to another subject and start repeating it. Okay? So I have to laugh at this because I'm thinking, this kid is really smart. And he actually knows how to push my hot buttons. Okay? One of the things that I have had to come to realize personally is that I have to adjust my expectations of him. I have to look at the bar. He's a 20-year-old body of a 2-year-old. Okay? 2-year-olds can't, okay, go do the dishes. Ooh, I don't know why I'm in the kitchen. All right? He'd grab knives, he'd turn on the stove, who knows what he'd do, okay? But I want him in the kitchen because that's where we eat, okay? Any other questions? Thank you for sharing about, well, we've tried acupuncture. We've used acupuncture. We've actually helped him do massage that unlocks the skull platelets because sometimes they get jammed, and that's helped relieve pressure, and there's an emotional and psychological benefit to them, to that. Massage, weighted blankets, sound therapy in a bed where the vibrations are coming through the bed. I mean, we've done an awful lot. And one of the things I think he likes the most is skiing and riding ATVs with me. One of the things that Helen and I have noticed about Jacob when we've had a wonderful ski day, for the next 24, 36, 48 hours, he's trying new sounds with his mouth, trying to form new words or whatever. We think it has to do with the vestibular stimulation of going up and down on the skis, over bumps, etc. So I marvel at part of what he does. So there's a book that has an awful lot more information on it. There's some great resources in here about attachment, some vignettes of different children from Hong Kong and in China, and the primary thread through the book is our journey with our son. But the young lady who co-wrote the book with me is a marvelous researcher, and she can give you phenomenal resources. She'll introduce the subject, give you a taste of it, like attachment, and the origins of it. Who is the father of attachment theory? And then fast forward it, okay? But a lot of those are mentioned in the back, so you can get more information there. If anyone is interested in a book, Mother's Choices, selling them? Okay? I'm signing them, they're selling them, okay? So anyone who wants to buy a book in English or in Chinese, I'd be happy to sign it for you. Any other questions? Do you have any questions?
I do actually.
Uh-oh.
One comment and one question. I absolutely also agree with you that the ultimate objective for us as a society is to get children from institutions to permanent adoptive homes as quickly as possible. And I personally, my thesis was done on orphans and abandoned children in China. And in many cases, we found that 99% of children who are abandoned in China today harbor some form of disabilities. Some are more severe, like cerebral palsy, but some are simply, for children who are harboring, say, like a cleft palate, they will get abandoned because of something that could so easily be fixed by surgery. But because of the lack of knowledge, because of the lack of prenatal care, a lot of pregnant women in China today are very much exposed to a lot of toxins, secondhand smoke and all that. My comment is that first, that one of our staff members has already mentioned that there's a very perhaps cultural stigma attached to adoption in the Chinese context, and also because of the children with special needs. But of course, I think through advocacy and through more information sessions and so forth, that could change. But over time, because especially in second or third tier cities, there's absolutely no professional help available to these institutions. There's, social workers is still relatively new.
It didn't even exist in China 50 years ago.
Exactly. So let alone, speech therapists and art therapists and so forth. So there's a huge demand in that. And my question actually to you, as you talked about your story, is whether or not these cultural barriers have had an influence in how you raise Jacob, or how others have viewed the arrangement that your family.
I don't. We're just trying to be his parents, okay?
Right.
So, at the end of the day, the relationship I have with Jacob and his relationship with me is the most important thing to me. It's not how people view me or how they view him, okay? It's how we connect with each other. So, I don't know if that's countercultural or what it is, but that's where I live. Okay. I do think there is a cultural bias toward children with visible special needs. They become, in a lot of people's minds, disposable. It's not perfect. Get rid of it. I would like to say that is a cultural blemish, not bias. And it needs to be identified as a part of our culture and needs to be eradicated. It's not healthy for the culture to say this child is disposable. Cleft lip, cleft palate, because you mentioned that, is the 5th most common physical disability in the world. All over the world, okay? With today's medicine, that's repaired in utero. Did you know that? You can repair the cleft lip, cleft palate while in the womb. They've been doing that for several years, okay? But it's a relatively simple surgery. I have adoptive Chinese children, grandchildren, who have cleft lip, cleft palate. One of them is John. He lives outside Nashville, Tennessee. I was on FaceTime with him this morning on the computer. He's got so much energy, okay? He's had several surgeries. They're extending the palate. I mean, he's been in hospital several times. And this was an interesting one. An American surgical team, doctors and nurses, flew from Tennessee to northern China, and they performed surgery on this boy when he's still in an institution. He was in a group home, okay, out of the orphanage, into a home called Hannah's Home House of Hope, okay? They did the surgery. My daughter and her husband came and adopted him. They go back to their home state. They visit Vanderbilt University Hospital for follow-ups with him. Guess where the surgeon lives who performed his surgery in China with his surgical team? Vanderbilt Hospital. They get to meet the little boy, one of them that they operated on 18 months previously in China as a local patient. Okay? And they are so engaged, this whole surgical team, wanting to follow him in his life because he's on this side of the pond and we get to watch him grow up. Very bright. Okay? He's a really bright kid. He had a facial disfigurement, and that's why he was abandoned. Okay? That's probably not going to turn around very soon in China, but it certainly should turn around in Hong Kong. Okay? And 30 years from now, as healthcare workers and social workers and speech, physical, and other therapists are being trained in China, okay, we could help come alongside those families to stop that occurring going forward. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you for coming. And if you would like a book, or if you'd like to talk to some of the people at who's here from Mother's Choice? Wow. Half of the congregation, half of the group, the audience, okay? You need to buy a book, those of you from Mother's Choice, okay? But thank you, and please feel free to talk to any of these, and if you do want a book, I'd be happy to sign a book for you, okay?
We don't have a lot of copies, so
Okay.
we'll order forms.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We are? Okay.
Oh, you have another.
And where are we doing it? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Where are we doing it?
Just
Okay.
some water and.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Oh.
Well, let me just, one second, present myself to you. This is our brochure. We've been absolutely, totally understand what everything that you
Great.
said.
Thank you very much.
And your thesis, I think that's wonderful. That's exactly what we've been experiencing